All right, we'll continue on with our next student speaker is Julie Philbrook, and she's been a registered nurse for more than 34 years. Her education includes an associate degree in nursing from North Hennepin County Community College, a bachelor's degree from Metropolitan State University. She also holds her Master's of Arts in Leadership and Nursing from Augsburg College. And in addition, she completed a certificate program in the Faith Community Nursing through Concordia College in Moorhead. You've been going to school a long time. She has worked for Hennepin County Medical Center for more than 33 years, 25 of those years as the trauma prevention specialist. As part of that role, she has planned and coordinated countless trauma prevention programs for the community. In addition, she has published research on a variety of prevention-related topics. So please welcome Julie Philbrook.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Joyce. I first want to say that I'm dedicating this presentation in memory of my father, who died 8 years ago today, and also had his fair share of falls before his death from cancer. I also want to give a thank you to my daughter, Emily, who's 14 and in school today, my mom, who's supported me throughout my life and my education, my manager from work, Brenda, who's here, and also Carol Ann Smith from our Traumatic Brain Injury Center at HCMC. I also want to thank faculty and my fellow students, and specifically my readers, Cheryl and my friend Nancy, who isn't here today. And I also want to just give a special thank you to Catherine for mentoring me through both my master's and my DNP, and also actually gave me an opportunity to teach at Augsburg nursing program, which actually led to my wanting to further my education at the DNP program. So you're to blame why I'm here today. So the title of my presentation is Preventing Falls in the Community Dwelling Older Adult Population Through Exercise, Education, and Strategic Partnerships. And I think you hear a theme through all of our projects, the key of partnerships. The objectives for my talk today include, I'm going to just describe briefly the prevalence of falls for people over age 64, the components of the Stepping On Falls Prevention Program, how Rosemary Parse guided my program through her Human Becoming model. Talking about the sunflower, as you see a theme here, my sunflower conceptual nursing model. Also talk about the successes and challenges of the project and describe my plan for evaluation. So what is your fall story? I think if we took the next hour, we could all share at least one, if not several. Falls is the #1 cause of trauma across the age spectrum. In fact, I did a presentation recently and I entitled it From Cradle to Cane, and all the prevention programs and messages that I give in each one of those age brackets, falls is a major contributor. In fact, annually in the United States, for older adults, which for this project I described to people over age 64, 2.5 million non-fatal falls are treated in emergency departments. Over 734,000 of those are hospitalized. And of course, as we're all concerned with, over $34 billion in medical costs are attributed to falls in the senior population. Specifically in Minnesota, we are the 4th highest rate for mortality from falls in all the nation, with 85.11 per 100,000. Falls are also the most common cause of traumatic brain injuries. So how I came to find the Stepping On program that I use for this project, for several years, I've been wanting to address senior falls in my job role. It's been in my performance evaluation year after year, as Brenda will attest to. But I was trying to find not just a talk, not just a lecture to go and talk to people. Didn't want to put fear into it. I wanted to be able to empower people to prevent their falls because they are preventable. They should not be just considered a normal part of aging. Looked at a variety of programs that are out there and found the program called Stepping On. And I will describe that in a few minutes. The goal of my project is to demonstrate how the transcultural nurse leaders can utilize this evidence-based intervention and partnerships with community stakeholders to empower community-dwelling older adults to decrease their risk of falls and to maintain their independence, which is probably people's biggest fear, is the loss of their independence. You'll see specifically I talk about community dwelling older adults. This program is focused on people that are currently living independently. There are other programs that address people that are maybe in assisted living or have other help, but this is really to keep that community dwelling independent person independent. So the Stepping On program was developed in Australia, is a community-based small group workshop. And in Australia, where it started, they did a study and showed a decrease of 31% in the reduction of falls. The Wisconsin Public Health Division developed an American version of Stepping On with the support from the Center for Disease Control. And this version was studied and documented a 50% decrease, a reduce in falls for seniors that participated in the 7-week workshop. The goals of these classes is to build the participants' confidence and their ability to manage their health behaviors, as well as reduce the risk of falls and maintain active and fulfilling lives. Stepping On leaders partner with guest experts in physical therapy, pharmacy, vision loss, community mobility, safety, and to address the variety of causes of falls. And that was probably the most attractive feature that I found with this, is when I looked at how to address this, there's not one answer. In some of my programs, it's put on a helmet, wear a seatbelt, don't drink and drive. With senior falls, is don't trip over the pet, pick up the rugs on the street or off the carpet, and strengthen balance. So this was something that really met all of those concerns. It is designed as offered for 2 hours a week for over a 7-week period, and the leader-facilitated format uses adult education and self-efficacy principles in the small group setting. Older adults learn balance exercises and develop specific knowledge and skills to prevent falls. The nurse theorist that guided my project is Rosemary Parsay, and according to her human becoming theory, the theory focuses on a co-participative, person-centered nursing. It engages people in a mutual selected activities and topics for exploration, and together creates an action plan for addressing concerns. The goal of her theory is to help the person move beyond the now moment toward their hopes and dreams of what is. So it really fit well with this program, where I'm not coming in and telling you what you should do and how you should prevent falls, but helping you to determine what those are. By utilizing Parsay's theory, the transcultural nurse can establish a caring practice that provides a holistic care for the people they serve while honoring their human dignity and freedom of the individual. The 3 abiding principles that create Parsay's theory include meaning, rhythmicity, and transcendence. And basically, they're described as meaning as the act of people co-participating and creating what is real for them through self-expression in living their values in a chosen way. Rhythmicity is unity of life that encompasses apparent opposites in a rhythmic pattern of relating. It means that in living moment to moment, one can show or not show themselves as opportunities and limitations emerge in moving with and apart from people. So it's a very fluid process. And transcendence means that moving beyond that now moment is forging a unique personal path for oneself in the midst of ambiguity and continuous change. This model offers an alternative to the traditional role of nurses in providing care to people, to providing care with people as they journey towards their living their own vision of health and wellness. So this is the model that I created using her principles and the Stepping On Foundation. So the older adult fall prevention sunflower model illustrates the interrelationship and the core concepts for this project. The process begins with the planting of the seeds, and this is just a great time of year to think about this. How we go out to this nice rich soil, it has nothing in it, and we plant some seeds that people may not necessarily see, but eventually grow into something beautiful. The seeds include exercise, education, and community partnerships and stakeholders. Now these people can include peers, so the people within the class and the workshops that they take, their families, spouses, community-based organizations, medical providers, health insurance providers, as well as the guests that we have come to speak to them on their various topics. Those seeds are nourished by the soil, much in the same way as the transcultural nurse supports and encourages the older adult. The seeds then sprout into the stem and continue to grow towards this full, beautiful flower. Much in the same way as an older adult participating in the fall prevention program moves towards realizing their personal health and wellness goals. During this growth process, the older adult builds confidence, as you can see in the leaves, develops resilience, and chooses actions that will help to maintain their independence. So you see each leaf represents those as they realize their own sense of human becoming. The petals of the flower represent the various aspects of personal knowing and well-being, with each petal overlapping each other, representing that interconnectedness and interdependence on each other, including the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, interpersonal, vocational, and financial aspects. We are very complicated people. We have a lot going on. Within this model, you see the clouds. Those are taking into effect the abiding principles and the definitions that I came up with for Parsi's abiding principles for this specific model include meaning, which is the older adults freely choose their lived values and priorities for well-being. Their rhythmicity is the older adults co-create the rhythmic pattern of relating to and with their environment. And the transcendence is the older adults are open to emerging possibilities for continued change. Just as the clouds produce rain that nourish the ground, and then the water evaporates back to form the clouds, these abiding themes represent the dynamic aspects of holism, well-being, as a continuous process of human becoming. So the assumptions that I used when I was putting this model together for the older adult is that they value feeling well and living a productive life, that they can successfully make changes in their lives, and that the transcultural nurse leader and the community-based partners can utilize the Stepping On program to successfully partner with older adults as they work towards their personal health and well-being goals. For my project, one of the things that needed to start with, because there was some significant expense in having trainers come to Minnesota to train us, is I applied to our Traumatic Brain Injury Center at HCMC. They had a fundraiser and put money aside for prevention, and I received over $31,000 in that grant to do this program. So that, of course, we all know is a great foundation. We recruited 15 people from across the state to come and become trainers. This is a 3-day training that we hosted. Normally that costs each individual $650 plus traveling costs, and we were able to offer it for free. In addition, we also had another donation that allowed us to give them a sample packet. We have a display table that we put up in the class with reachers and grabbers and hip protectors and different things that you'll talk about with the seniors during the class. So they each got a poster as well as the startup kit, which was a huge startup for them to get out into the community. They didn't have to start getting that. So also collaborated with the new leaders to offer 10 workshops in 2016, and that did occur. I did 3 of those to get up and going, and one of those I had to record for fidelity and send to Wisconsin to have that checked. And then eventually I was approved to become a leader, which was also, so we're going to be offering a workshop here that I'll be leading. Working with guest experts, so we had a physical therapist that came 3 different times in that 7 weeks and teaches a prescribed exercise, strength and balance, very, very basic, very evidence-based exercises that we teach the seniors to do at home. We also have a pharmacist come and talk about medications. I worked with State Services for the Blind, and they came out and talk about vision loss and resources for people with visual issues. And we also had a community safety officer come and talk about pedestrian safety. So a lot of what the leader does is not necessarily lead, but coordinate all these guests. But that is really the shining star in this class, is that it's multi-factor. So I did have 4 of the people that attended this leaders training eventually become leaders, 2 from the St. Cloud area who are going to be providing a workshop, and then myself and my co-leader. We'll be presenting a leaders training, conducting a 3-day training in May with people from across the state again, trying to build that network of leaders. And then the next step is going to be conducting program evaluation and with the workshop participants. So how does this advance our nursing practice? One of the several things that I identified with this is that it relies on the collaborative teamwork. As I said, the partnership is such a key thing. I could not go and do this class by myself, and me just doing it also does not get to enough people. So really trying to find the key people in the community that really want to take this on. I'm currently trying to recruit leaders from places that are housing places for seniors, and maybe they want to present it for the people, their residents there, working with faith community nurses, with their parishes, and just trying to find the people that really want to take this out to the community. It provides tools for program success. It's a very canned and easy program to do. They provide everything you need, all the handouts, so there's not a whole lot of development. You just need to prepare yourself to teach it. Provides a framework that will facilitate that collaboration, and it builds on the network of partners to prevent falls. This active approach is also in alignment with Parsi's theory that stresses that co-participative, person-centered nursing. As always, we have challenges. This actually, I found we made this into a game actually to give to kids to go to Grandma and Grandpa's house and find all their errors that they make. There's 11 in there. There's probably more. But this might be how Grandma and Grandpa's house looks. But they'll say, well, this is how I've always lived. I've always had this. And I always say, but you haven't always been 80. So we try to kind of get them to rethink. My personal story is I went to my grandmother's house with the high ceiling and the single light bulb in the ceiling. I went there for lunch one day, and she had a chair underneath the light. And I said, what were you going to do there? Well, I got to change the light bulb. And I said, oh. She said, well, I've always changed the light bulb. And I said, I'll change it for you because you haven't always been 80. And we don't want to take away their independence, but what I tell them is that if you fall, your independence is going to go away. So you need to start asking for help, and you need to start looking at changes you can make, because we're not trying to take over your life, we're trying to keep your life independent. As I proceeded after I had my leaders training and did our first several workshops, it was probably my biggest aha moment in this project. I am an educator. I love to impart knowledge to others. But this framework that they've developed really is more of a facilitator role. And that was a challenge. When somebody would ask a question in the small group that we were doing, I would, well, what do you think? And we could do this and this and this. And really what we want is them to hear from their peers and to facilitate solutions within the group. And so my first tape, I thought I did great. It came back from the evaluator, and I'm like, oh no. But when I truly facilitated the second workshop is where I really saw the value. I sat back, and they came up with the solutions. And maybe solutions they were more apt to implement because it came from each other. And so that was probably my biggest aha in this project, is that I need to let them and be more of a facilitator than an educator. The other issue that I did run into is partners can be great, but they can be challenging. There was a group I was going to be working with, and it was very exciting, and I think we were going to get a lot of good leaders out of it, but we ended up, myself and the person leading that group, had significantly conflicting agendas. And so we decided that this wasn't going to work together, and that was also humbling. You want to think that you can work with people and coordinate, but people are people, and hopefully we're both going on, and our ultimate goal is to prevent falls. We might just take a different route getting there. But that was also a challenge for me. So where I'm at now is planning for some project evaluation. The first part, the process indicators, the quantitative, is very easy to gather. I can tell you how many leaders, how many classes. Those are things that I'm gathering, and I do need to report those annually to Wisconsin as well as to my management and to the grant. The next step that I'd like to take is an impact indicator and looking more at that qualitative. And so my goal is to develop a focus group type of situation where we have people that have taken the class and have them get together and gather the information on how and why people hold certain beliefs about the topic and the program. And according to Davis and McFarland, the focus group format allows for open expression of ideas and perceptions without the need for reading or written response. So this is just a discussion that's happening, so people are maybe a little bit more open for that. The carefully planned discussion is designed to obtain perceptions on a defined area of interest with the falls in a non-threatening environment. There's basically 3 components that will take place within the focus group. It's a method devoted to data collection. It uses interaction as a source of data, and the researcher has an active role in creating the discussion. So I did a lot of look in my last chapters of my paper at how we could develop a focus group. So that is something that I plan to do in the near future. As far as dissemination, I also have done some presentations. I was on WCCO radio talking with our Healthy Matters program that we have and did an hour-long program on Senior Falls, and that actually was a great target because at 7:30 a.m. on Sunday, there was a lot of seniors that listened to that program, and so that was a good thing. And I recently, like I said, I did a presentation, a webinar that was, we know at least 400 people viewed it, and it's available online, covering a variety of prevention topics, but ending, of course, with the cane, Cradle to Cane, talking about the Senior Fall and the Stepping On program. I've also presented to the Hennepin County Medical Center Traumatic Brain Injury Center team, as well as our trauma committee. Plans for dissemination would be to apply to present to the Think First National Injury Prevention Conference, possibly looking at the Gerontological Nursing Association, and also Faith Community Nurse Symposium. Publications that I plan to explore publishing in include the Injury Prevention Journal, Geriatric Nursing, Journal of Christian Nursing, and Journal of Trauma. There's an injury prevention supplement that they put out. So there's my references for the presentation, and I'm open for questions.
Who's going first?
Being there's not, no.
We can never get you off
Questions for you, Julie. Very important work. This is beautiful. Coming from my background in community health, this is very much, while you are a clinical practitioner, this is very much a topic important for community health. So thank you for that. It's absolutely wonderful. Kind of keeping with your model of this becoming, I'm interested in your personal vision for growth with this. I know you've got a lot of plans for dissemination and things like that, but as far as getting this information to the seniors that could benefit from this prevention, what do you see as that potential for growth?
Right, thank you. And that is, I was just sharing, that is something that now that I've got it established and I can lead it, I think finding places where I can maybe go and present about it. For example, our biggest challenge right now is the experts that come in, the physical therapists and the pharmacists, that will make it easier for the leaders to put the classes on. And so looking at maybe presenting this at some of their association groups, and possibly even trying to create a database so that leaders, so when I train the 20 leaders in my class, I want to be able to give them the resources. So I really feel my role is providing the resources and that foundation for people. And so I'm really wanting to grow this. We're focusing on trauma centers because that's one of the places that we are kind of required to, is our level 1 verification, but also looking at other places that we can go. And that is a challenge. I think people see the value in it, but it's a commitment. The 3-day training, and then we ask them to do these 7-week workshops. So I've been doing a lot of emailing, a lot of talking and communicating with people. A lot of them, like I said, have an interest in it, but it's the resource allocation within their organization that's more of a challenge. So it's not that they don't see the value and that they don't want to do it, but so I don't, maybe some more of the dissemination and some more conferences and things and getting it out there and how it really works. And that is so evidence-based. And the Center for Disease Control, it really holds it up as a model. So when we're looking at data-driven programs, it's very easy to sell that way, but it's sometimes getting it to the right level to endorse it, to put the resources as is a challenge. So, yes, Catherine.
Well done, Julie.
Thank you.
This is a great project. The human becoming, as this model is so beautiful, I'm just curious how, when you have presented this to older people, of which I'm in that class, how do people relate to that, even that term, human becoming, and the theory base that you have attached us to, which I love, but I'm curious how people are connecting to that.
And I actually have not shared this specific model with my classes, but that would be a very interesting thing, even as part of maybe the focus group. might be a really good place to bring it and get their initial response to it. That actually is might be a really good way to get some information back from them on how they feel about it, because that would be a next step, is to get, we all kind of walk and talk this, but to bring it to people that it's focused on, to see if it resonates with them. So,
Well, I would encourage you to do that, because I think the notion of just fall prevention is kind of, that's an old idea, it's a good idea and all of that, but connecting it to the bigger idea of becoming and being more who you need and want to be in the world, even as you age, is a radical idea. So I would encourage you to
yeah. And I really try and focus on that maintaining independence. I think when you say something like that, people perk up versus the fall prevention. It's kind of a, yeah, right, okay, kind of boring. It's not a real fun topic always, because people don't want to acknowledge they even fell, let alone deal with changes in their home and life. But if I'm like, but if you could stay independent longer, that seems to be something that resonates more. Ellen, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just curious, Julie, do you evaluate the seniors that go through this after the class, and what have the participants said about this this workshop?
So, because it's been evidence-based, they really, when I was looking at evaluation, they really said you don't necessarily need to gather like how many of you have fallen. We don't need to assess that, but asking them maybe the changes they've made. There is a 3-month booster class that we call it, that after 3 months we invite people to come back and ask them if they've made changes and if they've had any things. So that is a place that I hope to gather some more information. In this initial phase, I wasn't able to do that, but that would be the next step. Because the real goal for me is, were you able to make some changes that you wanted to make, implement those changes? And do you feel safer, or do you feel less likely to fall because of that?
So even at that booster class, it might be really relevant to get their stories. Like they had a near miss, but because they had core balance now, they were more agile and whatever. And I think that would speak volumes to the fact that we're creating some safeness and environmental. It just would be good to hear from those that have participated.
Yeah, so that's where I think the focus group questions, we'll tease that out and ask for those, for that anecdotal data. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Julie, great work, of course, and I appreciate that you've focused on the seniors and taken on a different approach, non-fear-based but empowerment-based. So I have a question. I think of the life trajectory, and I think of 64 and older, and I think of how many people 64 and older can have a different perception of whether they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s. And I'm thinking of my 94-year-old father, who I'm now working with to consider a cane or a walker and that sort of thing. And so how do you navigate, when the seniors come, the different perceptions or where they're at? And I think there's still such a stigma about assistive devices. So how do you navigate and shift their perspective? It's kind of like what Catherine was saying about, human becoming versus this fall prevention and the stigma that goes along with it.
Oh, can I say something?
As a participant.
I was told I will go to her. Which I did.
There you go. That's a strategy.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't work with the theory, but.
The first question was, she was going to go around each person and have them tell about a fall they had and tell their story. And man, everybody wanted to tell their story about their fall.
Yeah, it's a very interesting environment, and you bring up a good point. We had one person I know who's kind of a pillar of our church who came and has had balance issues and has stopped going up front and moving around, but he didn't want to use a cane. And I think having been in a small place, working with the physical therapist who comes and started showing him how it could be used and use it right, he was more open to it. And again, I talked about, you could not use it and fall and change your life, or you could use it, maybe be a little, you weigh it and you decide, is it worth the possible embarrassment? Most people aren't thinking poorly of you. You're thinking it yourself. So again, that facilitation of him to go, why don't you want to use it? And that's more that facilitation versus, well, you should use it because of this and this. So I'm really trying to incorporate that more and getting them to come to that point of saying, oh, this is what I need to do. And so I think that's the big shift. And the fact that they're coming tells me that they actually have that concern. And the one other thing that was interesting is somebody told me that they had the fire department come and do a home assessment. They invited, they'll come, and some places will do that. And she says, so I took up all my throw rugs. But when they left, I put them back down. I thought, okay, well, we've made one step in the right direction. You at least acknowledged the fall risk. Now we need to make that next leap on our model to see the value in the fact that we can shampoo your rugs, but we can't pick you up after the fall. So it's tough. It's tough for all of us. But again, I really like the positive, and that it's not a fearful thing, and it's empowering. You can do things to prevent that. So. Well, I did bring you one thing, little goodies if you want. There's some little night lights that we give out. I'll put them over on the table. So if you want to take a little takeaway, and my website if you want more information is on there. So. But anyway, is any other questions?
One last thing. This is a fabulous project. HCMC should be very, very proud of you, and proud to have you as an employee, and you need to get this out because this is phenomenal. I'm curious, you've gone through 3 years. I know you came into our program, you had this focus, you didn't know how you were going to actually accomplish this when you started. I'm curious what learning you had, or what aha moment from what we taught you at Augsburg that you took and applied to this, besides, like I said, you talked about the theory, but is there any class or anything that, or any concept that stood out in your learning?
I think probably the thing with the transcultural track, and I struggled with the fact, that this wasn't a culture. I kind of had to get beyond that, but the seniors are their own culture. And so I think seeing that and viewing that in more than just the age, but the culture and the, their background and where they're coming from, and really looking at that, just like we would a different, more traditional culture difference. So looking at the older adults as their own culture and trying to understand, where they're coming from, why they're making the decisions they make. I think that this program helped me to just really change that paradigm or that view of the population I was working with.
All right, very good.